Good morning, everyone. This the Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. Nags Head Board of Commissioners meeting is hereby called to order. Before we move on, I want to recognize some folks who are here in the room today. We have former Commissioners Buster Nunemaker, Anna Sadler, and John Ratzenberger are here this morning, and also former Mayor Bob Mueller, and we appreciate y'all being with us this morning. If you will, please join me in a few moments of silence. And now, if you'll stand as you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda, and a motion would be in order.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. That brings us to recognitions, and we will start with the lifeguards and Chad Motes. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor, Board of Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be up here with you guys this morning again. I'm here to introduce our lifeguard staff, and we've got a video presentation that's put together to introduce our staff members. We went through 2 weeks of training in May. We have a second small group that starts this Friday that'll bring us to our full staff here mid-June. We've had a little unseasonably chilly start to the summer season. It's been a little windy and blowy, but the last couple of days been pretty busy, and we've had some good saves and some good beach days here the last couple of days, and we look forward to a warm and busy summer here in the Outer Banks. So without further ado, here we go.
Hi, my name is Brooke. I'm from Chesapeake, Virginia, and this is my first summer with Nags Head Rescue. Hi, my name is Megan. I'm from Orlando, Florida, and this is my third summer with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, I'm Kelsey from Virginia, and this is my fourth summer with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
What's up? My name is Michael. I'm from Baltimore, and this is my third year doing Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name is Jacob. I'm from Chesapeake, Virginia, and this is my third summer with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name is Jess. I'm from Virginia, and this is my fifth summer with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hey, I'm Michael. I'm from Virginia, and this is my fourth summer with Nags Head.
Hey, I'm Will. I'm from Nags Head, North Carolina. This is my fourth summer working Nags Head.
Hi, my name is Jackson Berry. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. This is my third summer with Nags Head.
Hi, my name is Sean Kenny. I was born and raised in Nags Head, North Carolina, and this is my 10th year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name is Jacob Framing. I'm from Wilmington, North Carolina. This is my 8th year with Nags Head.
Hi, I'm Chad Motes, Captain, Nags Head Ocean Rescue. This is my 23rd season with the organization. I'd like to welcome all visitors, new and old. Hope everybody has a safe summer here in the Outer Banks. If you have any questions, please speak to your local lifeguard.
Hi, my name is Luke Amon. I'm from Highland, Michigan, and this is my second year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
I'm Hannah Austin. I'm from Nova Scotia, Canada, and this is my first year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name is Antoine Cowan. I'm from Montreal, and this is my second year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Beliveau. I'm from Nova Scotia, and this is my third year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, I'm Gunnar Couch from Greenville, North Carolina. This is my first year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hello, I'm Cormac Davis from Nags Head, North Carolina, and it's my first year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Dollinger. I'm from Montreal, and this is my first year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hello, my name is Catherine Duquette. I'm from Montreal, and this is my second year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name is Jacob Gilbo. I'm from Montreal, Canada, and this is my third year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name is Rosalie Gilbo. I'm from Montreal, and this is my rookie year for Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
I'm Leo Turgeon from Quebec City, Canada. This is my second year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name is Laurence Chartrand. I'm from Montreal, and this is my second year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name is Frederick Gagnon. I'm from Notre-Dame-du-Portage in Quebec, and this is my first year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hey, my name is Max Janisic. I'm from Wanchese, North Carolina, and this is my second year guarding at Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hello, my name is Ryer Gilbertson, and I'm from Arizona, and this is my sophomore year with Nags Head.
My name is Martin Hance.
I'm from Aarhus, Denmark, and this is my sophomore year with Nags Ocean Rescue.
Hi, I'm Beatrice Gingras-Lavoie. Hi, I'm Laurence Lessard. We're both from Quebec, Canada, and this is our first year at Nags Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name is Mason. I'm from Nags Head, North Carolina, and this is my rookie year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, I'm Luke. I'm from Kitty Hawk, and this is my first year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name's Aaron Davis. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. This is my first year at Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, my name is Gabriel. I'm from Grandy, North Carolina. This is my first year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
I'm Matthew Mitros. I'm from Northern Virginia, and it's my first summer with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
My name is Trenton Pywinski. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. This is my first summer with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm from Montreal, Canada, and this is my third year working for Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Hi, I'm Jean Tanger. This is my 4th year, and I'm from Cape Charles, Virginia.
I'm Mandy. I'm from Kitty Hawk, and this is my 6th year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
I'm Drew. I'm from Greensboro, North Carolina, and this is my first year with Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
We are Nags Head Ocean Rescue.
Very nice. What a great group. That's exciting. And they look like they're happy to be here. We're always glad to see those folks who come back year after year. And I know you are too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you guys very much again for your support. And yeah, wish everybody a good summer. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. That brings us to a new employee, and Chief Hale will come to the podium, please.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I'm here before you today to introduce one of our newer officers, Lyle Coates. Lyle was born in Rome, Italy, and grew up overseas as his father worked for a diplomat at the United Nations. He returned to the States in 2005 and finished school in Washington, D.C. Lyle attended Davis and Elkins College in West Virginia and studied recreational management. After college, he had started a career in Utah as a ranger with the Utah Department of Natural Resources and worked for them for 8 years. Lyle relocated to the Outer Banks at the end of 22 with his fiancee, who works with the National Park Service at the Wright Brothers National Memorial. Lyle loves being outdoors, and his hobbies include hiking, camping, fishing, running, and traveling. Lyle successfully completed BLET this past month as an out-of-state transfer and is well into our FTO program. We look forward to the many years of service with Lyle. Welcome over. Again, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, this is our newest employee, Michael Tatterson. Mike was born in Maryland and raised in Charlotte. Tatterson is married to his wonderful wife, Brandy, and they have 3 children. He has a BS in criminal justice from Pfeiffer University. He started his career in law enforcement back in 2004 in Concord, North Carolina. After leaving Concord, he transferred to Kidover Hills Police Department, started in 2009, and worked there until 2014 until he relocated out of state. He returned to the Outer Banks in 2020 and started back in law enforcement with the Dare County Sheriff's Office until he started with us in April. He is a general instructor through the North Carolina Training and Standards and specializes in speed measurement instruments and field training officer. He is also a crash reconstructionist for motor vehicles, motorcycles, pedestrians, commercial motor vehicles, and railway crash investigations. I don't think he'll ever use the last one here on Outer Banks. So, in his free time, Mike enjoys traveling and spending time with his family, and we look forward to the many years for Mike. Welcome. Good to see you again. Welcome aboard. You too.
Thank you. And now Nancy Carowin will come to the podium.
Good morning,
Good
Mr.
morning.
Mayor, Commissioners. I'd like to introduce Kevin Nelson. Kevin began work with water distribution on May 30th. He moved to the Outer Banks in 1997. He graduated from First Flight High School in 2010, and he attended UNC Wilmington. He graduated 2016 with a degree in criminology and a minor in sociology. In his free time, he enjoys disc golfing, fishing, and bodyboarding. Kevin Nelson.
And now we'll invite Chief Hale back for a special presentation this morning.
Morning again. I'm here before you today to recognize one of our officers for the department's Life-Saving Award. I'm extremely proud of Senior Officer Mitchell and how he handled the situation. When I reviewed the body-worn camera footage, it was very easy to see the dedication and compassion displayed in the efforts to save the life of another. We come to work each day not knowing what calls may come, but we do our best to make sure that we're prepared. I certainly witnessed that in this situation. Seeing our staff's desire to save a life is what Nags Head employees are about. I have Senior Police Officer Joseph Charles Mitchell for a life-saving presentation. Presentation certificate reads, this life-saving award is presented to Senior Police Officer Joseph Charles Mitchell for the action set forth in the following citation. On May 19th, 2023, Senior Police Officer J.C. Mitchell responded to the outlets of Nags Head, located at 7100 South Croatan Highway, for a medical call involving an unconscious male in the parking lot. Upon arrival, SPO Mitchell evaluated the patient and began chest compressions and clearing an airway. Mitchell used his AED and delivered 2 successful shots to aid for transportation to Norfolk, Virginia. Senior Officer Mitchell continued life-saving efforts until relieved by Nags Head Fire and Rescue and Dare EMS. Sadly, the patient passed away days later, but the actions of Senior Officer Mitchell resulted in advanced care being delivered and gave the male a significantly increased chance for survival. Senior Police Officer Mitchell's actions have not gone unnoticed and are keeping in the higher standards of the Nags Head Police Department, given the 7th day of June, 2023. Thank you, sir.
Nags Head is very blessed to have officers like JC, and we appreciate the service he rendered to one of our visitors. Thank you. That brings us to presentations for the 2023 Town Lightkeeper and Nags Header Awards. We do this at this time near the town's anniversary date. Every year we open this for nominations. We do not have nominees every year, and so we encourage the public to think of those who are deserving of this award. And so we will start first with the Nags Head Lightkeeper Award. The Nags Head Lightkeeper Award was developed to honor persons who have shaped the image and direction of Nags Head, making significant contributions to the town through their time, actions, talents, and dedication, and who have demonstrated a sustained commitment to our community. Nominees shall be perceived by the citizens of Nags Head as leaders, engaged in the arts or commerce in such a way that they have elevated the profile of Nags Head. This year's Lightkeeper has indeed elevated, through 63 years of commerce in fresh local seafood, the image of Nags Head. Locals and thousands of visitors every season have watched this tireless individual bag and ring up their fresh fish, shrimp, and fixings, barely visible down behind her register. Our Lightkeeper is there every day because of their passion for the business and their drive to work. What we don't see is the history behind the face. The years running a seafood business at another location and operating with her husband a gas station and garage in the current location. The conversion in the 1970s of the service bays into a fish house, and the long winters spent packing fish. What's a little funny about this Lightkeeper and all this fish is that she has no sea legs and does not fish. This year's Lightkeeper arrived on the Outer Banks in the mid-1950s, coming with her mother from Kentucky to visit her uncle in a Civilian Conservation Corps, or CCC, camp on Hatteras Island. She met her husband there on Hatteras Island, and they married. He 18 and she only 16. If you can get her to stop working and talk, our Lightkeeper has a reputation for saying it like it is, and I suspect that there's a lot of wisdom in her words. Through the years, she and her husband, Jimmy, sold fish fry dinners to support the fire department. And for over 10 years, Austin Fish Company has supported the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. Nowadays, she takes winters off, no longer packing fish, spending days in the Florida sun, reading everything she can get her hands on. So when you see her swamped with summer customers, managing her store, and ringing up your purchase, take some comfort in knowing that she has a break coming. She is an icon, and the town of Nags Head is pleased to honor Sandra Austin as the 2023 Nags Head Lightkeeper. Ms. Austin. Lovely lantern describes the town of Nags Head honorary citizen Sandra Austin, the Lightkeeper for 2022-23. Would you like to say anything, Mrs. Austin?
Thank you very much. You always surprise me very much.
Good.
She's speechless.
For a few minutes, we don't think that will last. So,
thank you all very much.
The board will go back. Or would you like any of your other friends to come up for a picture as well? Okay, y'all come on up. The board will move and get one more picture.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. You always try.
What you said? We got a proposition. See if you accept it. As long as you got the case settled, that's the case. We'll make some sacrifices.
Well, that was fun. This is going to be fun, too. Our next award is the Nags Header Award. The Nags Header Award was developed to honor a special deceased person who made great contributions to the town over several years. A Nags Header is someone who helped shape the culture of Nags Head since its incorporation in 1961. This year, the town of Nags Head is pleased to honor Richard Dick Fessler and Joe Fessler as Nags Headers. We honor them together because, in both their personal lives and their public service, they were a team. The Fesslers met at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, where they worked. He was a comptroller, she a legislative affairs specialist. One of Mrs. Fessler's duties there was comforting the families of Apollo 13 astronauts after the onboard explosion in 1970. The Fesslers brought their family to vacation in Nags Head during the 1970s, eventually settling on Hesperides Drive in Nags Head Cove. Most notably, Mr. Fessler helped start Crime Line. The idea was conceived over a poker game at the Carolinian with notable local leaders like Tommy Daniels, George Crocker, and Walter Gray around the table. When the fledgling organization needed money, the Fesslers conceived the Womanless Wedding Fundraiser. And we have a picture there. I believe one of these pictures is of that couple. The pretty one on the left is Joe. The pretty one on the right is Mr. Fessler. For many years, the Fesslers were the backbone of the Nags Head Volunteer Fire Department. Dick was president of the VFD and chief, while Joe was active in the auxiliary and was a trustee of the Firemen's Relief Fund from 1992 until her death in 2018. Mr. Fessler served as the town fire chief when it was a volunteer organization. When it was time to order fire trucks, he ordered yellow ones, joking that if left in the sun, they would ripen to the right color. But in fact, yellow trucks were less expensive and saved the town some money. When it was time for a fire station and there was not enough money in the budget, he went to the Farmers Home Loan Administration, or USDA, for a loan. Unfortunately, he died before the station was finished, and some wanted to name the station in his honor. But Joe vetoed that idea, suggesting that it be named instead for their friend Doug Romali. Of course, someone so engaged in community service will eventually be asked to run for office, and Mr. Fessler was encouraged to run for mayor or commissioner, to which Mrs. Fessler reportedly said, "If you do, I will divorce you." Her sage advice to him, a maker of good trouble, was that he could create more havoc on the outside than the inside. One writer described Dick as sometimes gruff and brutally honest, but devoted to the fire service. His work as a comptroller prepared him to lead the fire department and improve the town's fire service. It is people like the Fesslers who have made Nags Head the kind of town it is today. For their contributions to the town and contributions to the culture of this place, they have indeed earned the title Nags Headers. And their daughter, Kathy Fessler-Clarkin, is here, and we would ask Kathy to come forward to receive this award on their behalf. Oh, come on. For the contributions which helped shape the image and direction of Nags Head. You want to say anything?
I'm speechless. The one thing that my father, family, was his fire department, and he loved all you shitbirds.
The next item on our agenda is public comment, and after public comment, we will take a brief recess to let y'all go. I don't know that we're going to have many speakers, so John, I'm going to turn this over to you for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, the board welcomes members of the public to come and provide comment to the board. This is not an opportunity for dialogue, and the board rarely responds to comment, but anyone who has anything they wish to share with the board, whether it's a concern or a joy, can do so. Please start by going to the podium, telling us who you are and where you live, and then addressing your remarks to the board. I will also be keeping time, and I'll let you know when your 5 minutes is up. Yes, sir.
My name is Buster Nunemaker, and I live in Nags Head Acres, and I want to thank the commissioners and Andy Garman for totally redoing our streets. It's amazing what a little push from this podium will do to get something that's desperately needed for a subdivision that's been in this town for, I think, over 30 years. So I appreciate it. And Renee, you asked me the other day how it looked. It looks great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nundermaker.
Good morning. My name is Billy Mosley, and I'm here with Lauren Nelson and Ann Cabell-Baum, and we are all part of the Friends of Jockeys Ridge. The Friends of Jockeys Ridge is a nonprofit group that supports, promotes, and protects Jockeys Ridge State Park. We just most recently had a very lovely ribbon cutting at our newly remodeled facility, our visitor center, last week, and we were graced with the presence of several fine town officials. And we discussed one of our new initiatives, and we wanted to announce to you today that we are currently in the process of campaigning for a North Carolina specialty license plate.
For Jockeys Ridge.
For Jockeys Ridge State Park, thank you. We are very excited to announce this new initiative, and the license tag features Jockeys Ridge State Park with a stunning sunset image created by one of Jockeys Ridge's greatest supporters, Ray Matthews. And at the same time of promoting Jockeys Ridge, I'll point out that it also promotes our fine town of Nags Head. You can apply for this license tag on our website, www.jockeysridgestatepark.org/license plate. It's a relatively easy process. We actually have to have 500 applications before it goes into effect, where the NCDOT will release these licensed specialty tags. So we are very excited about this. I believe it to be the first opportunity to advertise Jockeys Ridge in the specialty license plate department and the town of Nags Head at the same time. So hopefully you will apply, and that's it.
And we'll be following up with an email to everyone with your application attached.
And one additional thing, if you will reference the fundraising that this will generate for the Friends.
Sure, yeah, one of the special things about this program, and certainly you've seen other groups that have done this, is that some of the proceeds, of course it's $30 extra for a specialty tag, that some of the proceeds actually go back to Jockeys Ridge State Park and our friends group, which, you know, we try and support the park in every way, shape, and form. So please feel free to apply today.
Thank you.
For the record, Carolyn, that's an application. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to provide public comment to the board? If not, at this time, we will conclude the public comment session.
All right, and the board will be in recess for about 10 minutes. On our agenda is the consent agenda, and a motion would be in order.
So motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, and that was an aye from me. I didn't say it, sorry. The next item on our agenda are our public hearing on the budget, and I will turn this over to Mr. Leidy and Manager Garman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. At this time, the board will begin the public hearing to consider citizen comment on the town manager's proposed operating budget for July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024, with proposed CIP requests for the fiscal year 23-24 through fiscal year 27-28 and updated consolidated fee schedule. On this item, is there going to be any presentation from the manager or the finance officer?
I was going to say something briefly.
All right, then we will start the hearing with presentation from the town manager.
Okay, thank you. So, as the board's aware, this spring, the board held 2 workshops prior to the presentation of the FY 23-24 recommended budget in May. The board also held a workshop on May 17th, 2023. As stated in the manager's message in the budget, the driving force behind the 4.25 cent tax increase are the 2 projects the board financed earlier in the year totaling $19 million. These include the redevelopment of town's entire public services complex, which you will hear an update about that later in the meeting. Also, we are installing advanced digital water metering infrastructure townwide. The tax increase is designed to cover the debt service on this financing. The town has experienced significant increases over the past few years in both capital and operating expenses, mainly due to inflation. We've been fortunate. We've been able to absorb a lot of this with shared revenues we've seen increased over the past few years. We certainly need to be cautious about how we budget shared revenues in the future years moving forward, as any number of factors could affect this. We think this proposed budget gets us where we need to be. The board and staff have worked hard to produce a responsible budget that allows us to maintain a strong team and continue to make progress maintaining our infrastructure and services. As you know, there's a memo in the packet that outlines the changes from the recommended budget from your last workshop. There weren't many, mainly one change. A lot of the changes that we made to the budget were prior to the presentation of the recommended budget. That was based on feedback from the board and the 2 workshops prior to the recommended budget. The board and staff had made significant cuts to the budget to get us to the recommended budget. Just wanted to note and highlight that. So we have prepared everything you would need to adopt the budget at any time should you choose to do that. There are 5 items listed on the agenda that you would adopt as part of the budget, and we await your guidance and feedback on the process to adopt the budget. So thank you to the board and to staff for all the hard work in preparing the budget this year. And it was a heavy lift, and I really just appreciate everybody's effort, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garman. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Garman about the budget? I think y'all are pretty familiar with it by now. Does any member of the public wish to comment on the proposed budget? Yes, sir, Mr. Mullin.
My name is Bob Muller. I live in Nags Cove, and I am here to ask you to spend some more money. In particular, I'm here to request a specific improvement to the dog park, that improvement being a bus shelter type structure. Next slide, please. A bus shelter would serve a number of things. Primarily, it would protect from wind and rain. It would allow owners to bring dogs out in inclement weather and let the dogs run, and it would provide wind and protection from shade as well in the summertime, although the area is well treed. It is the one thing that is missing. The dog park is a great facility, but it is difficult to use, particularly in the north when it's blowing northeast. This slide shows you what it might look like positioned on the fence between the dog parks on the east side. The type of structure I'm suggesting is on the left. And that's my dog Finn right there in the lower left-hand corner. Next slide, please. I estimate it would cost around $10,000. Substantial funds have been encumbered from your capital improvements program this year. If additional funds are needed, I'd recommend that you increase occupancy tax by a little over $6,000 and local government sales tax by around $3,600. That splits the $10,000 cost between those 2 items in about the ratio they appear in the budget. Next slide, please. Thank you for the new benches. They are getting a lot of use. Next slide. And you can see, again, that the dog park is getting increasing use. Every month, more and more folks are coming. the bus shelter would be much appreciated and really improve the utility of the park. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Does anybody else wish to comment on the proposed budget? Does the board wish to receive any other information regarding the proposed budget? All right, if not, at this time we will conclude the public comment session on the manager's proposed budget. As you noticed from the agenda, there are several different items. I recommend that you take action on each of those components separately, just so we'll have a record that each one was approved.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
I'd like to thank those people that emailed us as well, Kim
Yes.
Ansel and others that have talked about the budget.
Yep.
We do have a mid-month meeting, do we not?
Oh, we do.
I would suggest that we put this off and have a discussion about this and have a discussion about a couple other questions I have after reading the agenda last night, if that would be amenable to the rest of the board.
Well,
I would support that. We've got a mid-month schedule. Considering this request and then any other issues that Commissioner Coon may have, maybe right to hold up and wait.
Okay.
I'm supportive of the budget. I just have some further questions, and I would like to have, for the board, at least have some discussion on this item.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. In which case, then, I think a motion, John, a motion to table.
Yes, I think you should go ahead and take action tabling the consideration of the budget items till the mid-month meeting.
Do we have to table since we can take action at any time until June 30th?
You can, but unless you're not going to take any other action on it today. I think you should go ahead and table it because it is on for an action item today.
Okay, I'll make a motion to table.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So I have a motion and second to table to the mid-month meeting, which the date would be
21st.
The 21st. So we will come back to this on the 21st then at 9 a.m. when we get to the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you. That brings us then to item F2, a public hearing to consider text amendments to the UDO pertaining to fueling stations. Mr. Leidy, you will continue.
All right, thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Members of the board, we will now begin the public hearing to consider various text amendments to Section 7.20 of the UDO supplemental regulations for fueling stations. This is, again, a legislative matter for the board to consider, and we'll begin with the staff's analysis presented by the Planning and Development Director, Kelly Wyatt.
Thank you so much. I'll begin by saying I'm attempting to use Huddle Hub, this new thing where we project our computers. If something goes wrong, it's user error. Nothing to do with Huddle Hub. Okay. Managed to get the first step. As noted, I am before you this morning to present a proposed text amendment to Section 7.20, the supplemental regulations for fueling stations. When we were going through the text amendment process for the historic character area, we landed on some amendments to fueling stations that were specific to the C5, the historic commercial character area. And following the adoption of those amendments, the board had asked that staff consider those amendments and how they would affect fueling stations townwide, and potentially see if it would be a good idea to extend those conditions townwide as well. So we've done that. Before we start, I wanted to just note the fueling stations that we currently have within the town that the text amendments would pertain to. That's the 7-Eleven at 3643 South Croatan Highway, the Duck Through at 4201 South Croatan Highway, Duck Through at 6322 South Croatan Highway, Wally's Gas Station at 7309 South Virginia Dare Trail, the Quality Plus at 7506 South Virginia Dare Trail, And I think everybody still calls it the Sunoco, but it did go to Valero. And that's over on the causeway at 7603 South Virginia Air Trail. If adopted, the amendments would extend that language for fueling stations. It would limit a fueling station use to have no more than 4 fueling dispensers. It would preclude any new development of a fueling station on a lot that has frontage on NC 12. And if the fueling station has a convenience store associated with it, that convenience store cannot exceed 3,500 square feet of habitable building area. So the condition as it pertains to no frontage on NC 12. I did want to note that that does affect 2 of the current fueling stations that we have in town. The 7-Eleven at 7309, or I'm sorry, the 7-Eleven at 3643 South Croatan Highway. That has dual frontage. You have access on 158 and 12. And then Wally's at 7309 has some frontage on NC 12 as well. So technically, this does create a nonconformity for those 2 locations. But if the language is adopted, there's nothing about the language that precludes those uses from continuing to operate just as they are. And they can actually go ahead and do improvements to the property as long as those improvements meet today's code, so it doesn't increase the degree of nonconformity at all. Staff believes that the proposed amendments ensure that only fueling stations of a specific size, scale, and character could be constructed within the town, noting that fueling stations with convenience stores with a larger area and numerous fueling dispensers do not meet the values and the aesthetic of the town of Nags Head. And we do have a policy in the comprehensive plan, that's LU1, states ensure the character of Nags Head is preserved as a single-family residential beach community with ties to the natural environment, with the character being defined with buildings with a residential scale and appearance, low height, small footprint, that are designed to reflect the heritage of Nags Head, and commercial development that serves the needs of the residents as well as the visitors, but respects the goals of the community related to design and appearance. So based upon that, staff does recommend adoption of the proposed amendments as presented. The planning board heard this at their April 18th meeting and voted unanimously to recommend adoption of the text amendments as well. As always, there's some consistency findings that the board needs to make, so if you're inclined to adopt this amendment, we have those included in Appendix A in your packet. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, are there any questions for Ms. Wyatt?
I do. This just occurred to me, so I'm sorry I haven't given staff any heads up on this or asked this before. Is convenience store one of the uses that's permitted in commercial residential mixed use?
We can find out very quickly.
Looked and I couldn't find it before you finished talking, so I would have had it.
It's okay. If you don't mind giving me just one moment.
No, not at all.
I'm happy to look it up. And now with Huddle Hub, everybody can look along with me. So section 7.32 is where we outline the uses that are allowable as part of a commercial mixed use.
Yeah, and I see convenience store.
Yes.
Okay. So as I read this then with the additional language, convenience store use associated with a fueling station shall not exceed 3,500 square feet. If it were part of a commercial residential mixed use and the convenience store portion did not exceed 3,500 square feet, could you add residential if it were a 3-story building of an additional not quite 7,000 because you would cross the 10,000 threshold.
That is a good question that I don't know that I can answer right at the moment.
My sense is that it probably would. So just if the question is, do you not want the structure with a fueling station to be greater than 3,500? Or is it really just the use if they decide to put it together in a mix? And it could be any mixed use. I guess it could not just be residential. If it were on the end of a strip center and the use associated with the convenience store did not exceed the 3,500, could the building that it was attached to be larger?
I would say yes, it could.
I think that's, I'm going to agree with you. I think that's correct. So
even though this isn't a mixed-use development here.
But I'm thinking when you jump to the other part, if you had an applicant who was trying to put the two of them together.
Now, is a fueling station allowed as part of a mixed-use development? I don't think it is.
I don't believe.
Okay, so maybe the fueling, not the convenience part, but the fueling station part throws it out of that category.
Yeah.
Okay. That.
Correct.
They do, but that would then become a nonconformity in that regard. Yeah, I'm wondering about somebody wanting to do this as a new applicant is what really prompted the question, was just to clarify that part of the ordinance, because, I mean, mixed use is something we're promoting, so I just want to be clear about what everybody's expectation is if we do this, that you're never going to see but I think that's the clarification then. If that in fact holds up, that the fueling station part kicks it out, then.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So you could have if it was in the right place, you could have a 3,500 square foot convenience store that was part of a 10,000 square foot shopping center. Just the convenience store use can't exceed the 3,500. If it doesn't have fueling. If it has fueling, it's not going to go into the mixed use category at all. Okay. All right. That's good enough for me.
Any other questions for Ms. Wyatt? Anybody? Kelly, anything else?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this proposed text amendment? Does the board wish to receive any other information about this before you begin your deliberations? All right, if not, we will conclude the public hearing and the board may deliberate on this proposed text amendment.
Let's try getting a motion for discussion.
Make a motion that we approve as presented.
Okay, do I have a second? Second. I have a second. So now, any concerns about this?
Just a point to make sure we're all clear. Those fueling stations that are there are grandfathered in.
Yes.
Just want to make that sure that everybody understands that.
And what we found out yesterday, that they can be repaired if they were destroyed during a storm. Can totally be repaired.
And we don't have any exceeding the 4. We don't have any stations exceeding the 4 anyway, so that's a good size. And that seems to fit, think of the ones you see, it seems to fit.
I think it fits, the 4 seems to fit the character of Nags Head versus one that's got 10 or 20 or 30 that we're seeing sprout up north all the way up to the state line.
Right.
Some of which are extremely huge.
Yeah, they're huge.
We found out that there was a proposal in town to do a large fueling station. It has a much different character than a neighborhood station that we primarily have here in town. And the changes that you made to the nonconformity section of the code with the C5, those applied town-wide. And so that's what we talked about yesterday, is that would also apply in this situation to allow flexibility for these existing businesses.
Right. Not trying to draw anybody out of town. That's not the desire at all. It's to try to think forward and keep our character the way it should be.
Yeah, keep the uncharacteristically large islands out of it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any further discussion? We do have a motion and a second on the floor. Hearing none, I'll ask all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. That brings us to reports and recommendations from the planning board. So Kelly.
Share my screen once more.
There it goes.
Oops, too much. Okay, so briefly go through the items that we have here. And of course, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to jump in. We've outlined the meetings that planning staff attended during the month of May, and I really went into a little bit more detail when it comes to the planning board and what occurred at their May 16th meeting. We had consideration of a text amendment to allow drive-through restaurants as a permissible use within commercial mixed-use developments. The planning board did recommend denial of that text amendment as it was written. Yesterday, I had a correspondence with the attorney, Mr. Hornick, who's representing the applicant, and he would like to propose some alternative language, so that will have to go back to the planning board for their review again. We had a sketch plan review that coincided with the text amendment for the Starbucks itself to be located at 7100 South Croatan Highway, which is the outlets at Nags Head. They were not ready for a formal technical review committee meeting. They wanted to make some more tweaks to their sketch plan. So again, the planning board will see that as well. The planning board considered the initiation and the recommendation of text amendment to section 11.10 of the UDO as it relates to dewatering activities. They recommended adoption of that text amendment, and the board will be hearing that as a public hearing at their July meeting. We had continued conversation regarding text amendments to the UDO as it pertains to habitable building area. We've discussed this several times. The consensus of the planning board was to consider regulating maximum habitable building area, whether you're talking about your 3,500 or your 5,000, based upon the gross floor area of the home. That way you're capturing more of the volume of the home and offering some specific exclusions, such as garages and attic space. So we're still reviewing that and hope to have something to the board shortly. We continue the conversation related to definition of dwelling unit and clarifying language related to accessory structures and accessory uses. We did want to wait for the community-wide survey to try to have any additional conversations around accessory dwelling units in hopes of getting feedback from the community as to how they felt about those. So as you may recall from the historic character area amendments, both the text amendments and the map amendment, there was a lot of conversation around mixed use and whether mixed use was appropriate in the C2 as it was currently shown within the town. Having gone through the map amendment associated with that, it is time to go back to the conversation about multifamily and how we're going to reintroduce multifamily back into the code. So this is probably going to take several meetings. We're just starting the conversation now, and the planning board did express a desire once we have some basics down that perhaps a joint workshop with the board would be helpful. So I'll keep you updated on that as well. We had some discussion of amendments to section 10.16, required parking by use. We were focusing on restaurant parking. In preparation for the item, we did note that the parking standard for sit-down restaurants, it doesn't currently have a requirement for employee parking, and it hasn't for quite some time. That wasn't something that we lost in our conversion to the UDO. That employee requirement wasn't there even prior. So we did come up with some questions that we wanted the planning board to think about, discuss, and be prepared at their June meeting to delve more deeply into some of these concerns. I will note that when you're talking about customer service area, whether it's where people are actively purchasing food and consuming food, being waited on, or whether it's just simply a waiting area that's evolving into a place where people are actually consuming food there. We had a planning board member bring up the fact that the Dare County Environmental Health Department, when they're reviewing their septic capacity, they set the maximum occupancy for that structure, period. And so to potentially consider a parking standard based upon the maximum occupancy outlined by the Environmental Health Department, and perhaps get away from trying to determine where people are being serviced versus where they're waiting, but also still consuming and purchasing food at the same time. So that's an ongoing conversation. This is all to say that we've had a lot of ongoing conversations at the planning board stage, so a lot of moving parts, and hopefully we'll wrap some of these up and get them to you. The planning board's next meeting is going to be on June 20th, and as I said, they're going to be reviewing a revised text amendment as well as a revised sketch plan for the drive-through restaurant and the Starbucks location at Outlets Nags Head. We'll continue the conversation related to commercial parking and habitable building area as well. So we didn't have any applications for the Board of Adjustment in May and June, but it does seem like we will have one coming for the BOA in July. The Septic Health Advisory Committee, they haven't met for their quarterly meeting yet, but the conversation around dewatering activities precipitated from the Septic Health Advisory Committee. So there is progress there, and again, the Board of Commissioners will have that for public hearing at their July meeting. We did get some educational materials as well, so we'll start dispersing those throughout the community. The town was invited to submit a full application for the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant in the amount of $485,000 for surveying, engineering, and design for the prioritized sites that we identified as part of the Estuarine Shoreline Management Plan. The town has now applied for Phase 4 of the Resilient Coastal Communities Program, and that's for the implementation of Stormwater Project Area 12. With regard to our EV plan, we did get awarded the $10,000 for a rebate for Level 2 public charging stations, and we'll be looking at ordering that equipment shortly. Whalebone Park, we're still proceeding with the intent to develop and design a simple restroom there at Whalebone Park. Governor Street Public Beach Access, the town recently submitted a pre-application for a DCM Public Beach and Coastal Waterfront Access Grant for construction of new ADA accessible elevated dune crossover and ADA compliant parking at Governor Street. And the town has now been invited to submit a full application, which is going to be due on August 28th. The Dune Management Cost Share Program, we've allocated all of those funds, and now we're just in the process of providing reimbursements. Sand relocation authorization, again, that program's complete, but I did want to highlight that we wrote over 279 authorization letters, which was significantly more than previous years. The Nags Head Dog Park, the crushed granite surfacing at the entry is tentatively scheduled for June 15th and 16th, but of course we'll make sure that the public is aware and the dog park users are aware before that occurs. Lastly, Dowdy Park. There's lots of things going on with Dowdy. In addition to the summer concert series, the farmers market, and the fitness activities, we do have a new event coming up. It's Family Fun Night, which is going to be held on Tuesday, June 20th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Dowdy Park. The Dare County SPCA is going to be the highlighted nonprofit for that evening. There'll be approximately 10 vendors that are offering pet-friendly, pet-related products, obstacle course, costume contest, Puff Cups photo booth, activity making toys, long games, scavenger hunt. So I think it's going to be one of 3 or 4 of these family fun nights that are a new event, but should be very fun for the community. And that's all I have for you today.
All right, great. Thank you. Any questions for observations? Yes.
I have a question,
Commissioner
Kelly.
Sure.
As it relates to item 3, where it talks about dewatering and installation of in-ground pools, on our current application for pools, do we require as part of that approval process, a documented plan for dewatering?
We do not. And so that is actually part of the internal protocols that we're putting together. And I can actually maybe show those to you if you're interested. Some of the things, as we're going to amend the language of that code, but internally, we also need to change how we're accepting the information and processing any permit for excavation for in-ground pools or anything like that. So a permit will not be issued until a dewatering plan has been provided, reviewed by town manager, town engineer, public services director. We're going to be asking for information on the depth of the pool, as that's going to make a difference. We'll be doing the research on groundwater levels, things of that nature. So currently, no, we haven't been asking for a dewatering plan, but we will moving forward.
Okay, the other part of that question would be, as part of that plan or permit process, they need to show where they're going to dispose of their annual cleaning water or their weekly cleaning water. So, because typically what they're doing is dumping it on somebody else's property, and they need to have a plan that's documented, therefore an NOV could be issued if their pool cleaner is dumping it on somebody else's property.
Absolutely. We'll make sure that that's clear.
That the dewatering caused a major problem in one area of town, but the pool cleaning does it on a weekly basis to a lot of other people as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us now to old business and items tabled from previous meetings, and item H1, discussion of the Nature Conservancy easement. Andy.
Thank you, Mayor. So we talked about this a few meetings ago. We had been approached recently by staff from the Nature Conservancy, Aaron McCall and Fred Anand, about the possibility of placing a conservation easement on a property that the town owns surrounding the fresh pond. And so we have done a little bit more research on this, and we have some information to present to you today. Aaron is here with us today, and maybe he could come sit closer to the podium in case we need him to help explain some of this. And then, I know we've got other people in the room who have a lot of history on this. Former Mayor Muller, I'm sure. But yeah, there's been a lot of history in the woods, and the town has developed policies over the years related to its efforts to conserve the woods. And so I just want to go over that really quickly with the board. Let's see. So the property in question that we're talking about is here on the screen. This is the 285 acres that surrounds the fresh pond. Right now, the property is managed primarily by the Nature Conservancy. And I believe there's a long-standing lease that's been in place since probably 1985, which assigns the responsibility for management to the Nature Conservancy. This is a map of the property that was included in that lease. And you can see up here that there's the outline of the fresh pond. And the area surrounding the fresh pond, I believe probably includes the shooting range, has been excluded from that lease. And so has an area down here near the nursing home and Wellfield Road, which runs along the back sides of these properties. And so even at that time, the town had looked at excluding certain uses from the lease. So primarily the rest of the woods area on this property is managed by the Nature Conservancy, and I believe it's addressed in their management plan. So again, here's the property. Over the years, the Nature Conservancy and the town have been working to acquire property in the woods and place it into conservation. In the early 90s, the town and Nature Conservancy partnered together to purchase a property, a large property, as you can see on the screen, roughly 380 acres that we own jointly, and a conservation easement was placed on this property soon after it was acquired. I believe in early 2000s, we also used Clean Water Management Trust funds to acquire this property and place those in conservation as well. And the town did that on its own, I believe. So Aaron can certainly speak to some of the other efforts that they've made to acquire a lot of these properties. They have worked over the years to acquire a lot of the properties in the woods, not only in Nags Head, but in Kill Devil Hills. And just a few notes about the Nags Head Woods area. So like Jockey's Ridge, Nags Head Woods is a national natural landmark. I believe it was assigned that status in 1974. And it is primarily owned by the Nature Conservancy, Nags Head, and Kill Devil Hills. So Nags Head Woods is a 1,200-acre mature maritime forest, representing one of the few intact maritime forest habitats in North Carolina and on the eastern U.S. coast. Nags Head Woods Ecological Preserve represents a significant percentage of land area in the town. Nags Head Woods contains the largest freshwater pond on Body Island, known as Fresh Pond. Nags Head Woods is home to more than 550 species of plants, including 8 species that are considered rare in North Carolina, more than 100 species of birds, 65 species of land vertebrates, and 6 species of freshwater fish inhabit the various ecosystems within the ecological preserve. Due to the protection as a conservation area, Nags Head Woods will be able to be enjoyed for generations of visitors to come. Each part of the natural system is important to the survival of the whole system. Nags Head Woods boasts over 5 miles of nature trails that wind through the lushly wooded dunes, peaceful ponds, and brackish marsh teeming with plant and animal life. Each trail gives you a different perspective of the maritime forest. In addition to the trail system, a series of programming and education opportunities are available at the Nature Conservancy Visitor Center located on Ocean Acres Drive in Kill Devil Hills. And then really briefly, so on the screen is our Nags Head Comprehensive Plan, and we have policies in the plan that speak to our efforts in the woods. Up on the screen, you can see here in R6, it says that we would want to continue to protect the important natural habitats and ecosystems, ensuring improvements associated with development minimize impacts to the natural resources in areas of environmental concern, specifically seek dedicated nature preserve status or regulatory conservation protection for town-owned property in Nags Head Woods Preserve. Obviously, it speaks to partnering with the Nature Conservancy. I think one of the strongest policies that, in my mind, provides guidance is down here in R9. Preserve Nags Head Woods and Fresh Pond in their natural state and allow only limited public use for passive recreation. This shall include only limited walk-in access to Fresh Pond and no improved facilities for boating, parking, or swimming. The town will not allow or introduce public access or uses into the town-owned portions of Nags Head Woods or Fresh Pond AEC, which will degrade and/or supersede the ability to maintain the existing public uses, such as police shooting range and the Fresh Pond public water supply. I think that the policies we have in our land use plan support moving forward with considering conservation easement status of this property. And Aaron and Fred have offered to help us work through the grant process with Land and Water Conservation Fund, which was formerly Clean Water Management Trust Fund. And as they've explained it to us, essentially what we would do is appraise the property. We would appraise the value of the conservation easement. So essentially you're looking at the development rights you're giving up by placing a conservation easement on the property, and then they would award you the difference between the development rights and the value after the conservation easement is placed on it. The current value of that property is over $6 million. So it could be a substantial amount of money, and you can exclude areas of the property from the conservation easement as you so choose. And so obviously the areas surrounding the bank of the fresh pond, the police shooting range, and any of the public works uses, anything that we would want to do back there, we should certainly consider excluding from any easements. And so I think within the next 6 months, we could start working on preparing an application to Land and Water Conservation Fund. And I think Aaron could certainly speak to any of this as well. They've provided me with information for today's meeting, a lot of the details that we would need. And so I think that the funds that we would receive from Land and Water could be used for any town purpose. It wouldn't be restricted to improvements on this property, which is appealing to myself and as Amy Miller as well.
No doubt.
So anyway, we would certainly appreciate any guidance. We didn't really ask the board to make any decisions today, other than if you're interested in continuing us pursuing this, we can certainly work on this over the next few months and consider preparing a grant application for next cycle.
All right, thanks. I guess first I'll just ask generally if there are any questions before I sort of poll everybody. Mr. Sears?
No.
Mr. Cahoon?
I'd like to see us move forward, but I'd like further clarification as to, we've done a lot of easements, and I still support the easements, but number one, the shooting range has to stay. But number two, would an easement, I'm assuming it includes the land over Fresh Pond? Is that being proposed?
Well, we haven't proposed anything specific yet. I think one of the things we could do is come back and do a little mapping exercise with the board and show you different alternatives and what would be included and excluded, and let you pick what should be included.
The only thing, as I say that, I know we don't produce water anymore, but you never know what happens in the future, and if we need water from Fresh Pond in emergencies or different things, we need to have that ability. The other property that we have under conservation, we have a statement in there to something, if town has a natural disaster and we need to do something with the property, we're still allowed to do that, if I'm not mistaken. I thought we had put that in there at some point.
I don't know if that's on the easement language, but that is in the MOU that we've had with the town. So the MOU, which is different than an easement, we have always stated that with the agreements that we've managed the properties with you guys, that you would have the ability, if we were into a situation, that you could do that. But an easement probably would preclude that type of language. But as Andy mentioned, like, we would separate parcels of certain things or needs if there was desires to come footprints of stuff like that before the easement was kind of bound to those areas. But essentially what we're looking at doing is trying to essentially do what you guys have already kind of mandated, which is have this property in protection for perpetuity, whether any of us are around or not, that property, whether it's the 300, the whole property, or we exclude parcels like we've done already under the management agreement. Because it's already excluded. Fresh Pond we don't manage, the firing range we don't manage, and all those type of things. So that's outside of it.
I just want us to think long-term, that if something happens to the town, God forbid, that we're not limited on how we reconstruct ourselves.
Mr. Brink?
So if we went along with the easement, proceeded with it, could the fresh pond be used as a water park where people could rent kayaks and canoes and fish?
At no point have we said what an easement is or isn't. So we have a lot of language that could be done with that. But as we've talked with Andy and already, we would exclude. We'd have an area drawn around Fresh Pond. So the Fresh Pond would be outside of the easement language as we see. We'd be mostly looking at putting an easement on the maritime deciduous forest, the actual area where we currently have Blueberry Ridge Trail, where we manage for the urban interface and the fire, stuff like that, will we be allowed to manage for the ecological integrity of the property as a whole? I mean, when you look at that piece of property, if something were to happen in that or that area, it would instantly start to divide what we've already been protecting over the last 40 years. So when you look at that maritime forest, look at the ridges and all that stuff, that place holds it together. I mean, 300 acres is a lot when you're talking about, just over 1,200 acres in conservation. So from my perspective as a land manager, I'm very interested in putting as much protection on that piece of property so we can manage for the whole, the integrity of the diversity that Andy did so great explaining. I mean, over 500 different plants. I mean, some of the highest biodiversity that we have on the Outer Banks falls in Nags Head Woods. The more that gets separated, the more that gets developed or destroyed, the less and less species we have. And so my intent is to try to protect this as a whole for perpetuity.
Well, and one of the questions, one of the reasons that I was interested in this is because the board keeps receiving questions about introducing certain uses onto the property, and our goal would be to sort of lock down that question so that it's clear in the future what can happen. And so I would be interested in exploring that and including that to the extent we can in this process.
Yes.
Because, the question about parks and boat access and all that, it recirculates from time to time, and it would be nice to have clear policy and restrictions on what can happen.
I'm in favor of moving forward.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sanders.
No, I think some great points have been brought up, and I'm definitely interested in pursuing and discussing them.
Okay. I think the direction's pretty clear, Andy. Let's keep moving. You heard the issues about Fresh Pond, shooting range, future options in case of emergency. So just, yes, I would say continue.
Sounds good. We'll keep you posted.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is new business, and that would be committee reports. And I'll poll the commissioners. Commissioner Sanders, do you have anything to report?
No, I'm pretty excited about the shoreline management plan and that we're being able to submit for a full grant, and I want to thank the town for pursuing that.
Okay, great. Excited. Look forward to seeing something built. It'll be fun.
Had Jeanette Peer Advisory Committee meeting about 2 weeks ago. Very small group. Our committee has lost several members. My friend was actually asking for suggestions of maybe people that could be added to the committee. So we would discuss that a little bit. Their events are increasing. Their camps that they hold during the summer months have decreased significantly because of staffing issues. Malin White, who's the director out of the Raleigh office, he has announced his retirement. I think it's July 1st. So they'll be looking to appoint someone for that position. But their visitation is trending upwards. It's good. It's good.
Anything for bike and pedestrian safety?
No, I did receive a phone call from the Coastland Times reporter that was doing an article on that, but nothing further.
Okay, all right, thank you. Commissioner Cahoon?
GovEd did have a meeting in May. Seems to be a trend that has developed that whenever we hire a director, they move here, they're here for a little bit, and the private sector seems to take them one at a time.
Right.
So we do have a vacancy in the directorship. So that will be being advertised. We are meeting in June to discuss that further, as well as a subcommittee was formed to look at some changes to the LDPI grant requirements. That's it.
Commissioner Sears?
Dare County told the tourism board they have no money for their event site, so that won't be moving forward. And I don't see on here, Andy, that
Could you repeat that?
Dare County has no money for the event site, so that will not be moving forward in the near future.
Okay. Could you tell me the current balance of the tourism board's money? Just a curiosity question.
More than anyone else. How about that?
I
don't have.
Could you?
I don't have that. I'll send it around.
Well,
I don't have it in
could you send
front
the
of me.
last audit over to the board so we can look at that?
Yeah, I'll send you the last budget, actually. to the board, but it's substantial amount, more money than anyone else in the county has.
I'm sure of that, since we can't get our money back from them, thanks
Correct.
to the county.
Also, I don't see on here, Andy, they want to donate the building at Pamlico Jacks for fire training, and you were, I thought that was gonna be coming before the board today.
I just got an email about that yesterday, so I didn't have time to put it on the agenda this time. Amy and I have a few concerns about that we've been talking about, so we have to vet that internally before we put it in front of you. But, you know, one of the concerns is that, you know, the reason they wanted to transfer ownership of that building to the town is so that they didn't have to deal with the governmental surplus and disposal requirements. However, if they do that to us, then we'll just have the same problems they had.
Plus the liability.
So, you know, I don't know if that's something we really want to do or not. But, I mean, we've talked to them about training and burning the building down, and I think our fire department would be interested in doing that in the off-season. So it's just something we need to vet further.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item I2, which is consideration of board or committee appointments and reappointments. You have an attachment in your packet. And so we have first the question of appointment or reappointment to the planning board. David Elder's term expired May the 6th. He has indicated that he would like to be considered for reappointment. And you also have a roster in your packet. I'll review all of these and then we can take them one at a time. We also have appointment or reappointment to the Board of Adjustment. Alternate Don Milbrath's term expired May the 6th, and he is not interested in being reappointed. We, I believe, have a couple of candidates for Board of Adjustment. And then appointment to the Personnel Grievance Panel. Jean Flanagan's term expired May the 6th, and she has indicated she would like to be considered for reappointment. So let's take them first in order. Appointment or reappointment to the planning board. Does anyone have a motion?
Motion to reappoint Dave Elder.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to reappoint Dave Elder. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Oh, I didn't hear anybody.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When you asked it, it's not aye.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was like, quiet.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Appointment or reappointment to the Board of Adjustment, and we will need a new name here.
Mayor, may I make a motion that we not fill that seat today and ask the clerk to advertise for some other parties to be, if other people are interested in being appointed?
We may. So how about do you want to do that at the next regular meeting, or do you, because that would give us enough time.
Next regular meeting.
So how about a motion to table that appointment to the next regular meeting?
Motion table until our July meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right, thank you. And then an appointment to the Personnel Grievance Panel. A motion would be in order if anyone has a candidate who would like to renominate Ms. Flanagan.
Motion to reappoint Jean Flanagan to the Personnel Grievance Board. And I believe she's there. However, I would make one change.
Yes.
That she be appointed as a regular member, since we have a vacancy where Perry White had resigned.
Second. All right, so that is a motion and a second to appoint Jean Flanagan as a regular member. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Should we also advertise?
Yes, and I was going to say that. Yes, if you will also advertise for that as well, that would be great.
I think for all boards and.
All boards
it should
and
be
committees, why not? But, yes. All right, thank you. That brings us to Mr. Leidy. Items referred to in presentations from the town attorney, discussion of the retainer fee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is the only item that I have today. I do want to just go over briefly the request that we've made for an update to our contract for legal services with the town. As I mentioned in the email that I sent to everybody last Monday, we have not made a request for a change in the last 2 years, but during that time, the CPI indicates that inflation has increased by 15.01%. And so we're requesting an adjustment to both our monthly retainer rate as well as our hourly rate for legal services in a corresponding amount. So that would change the monthly retainer to $2,950. And then for our hourly rate for the work that we perform, we would like to increase that to $250 per hour. I will say that although our services are performed on a sort of as needed and requested basis, so it's always hard to predict exactly what's going to happen from one year to the next. I think the current status in the town suggests to me that we are likely to have less in legal fees for the town than we did last year. And I think it will be well within the budget that y'all have, that's proposed in the manager's budget for this year. But again, you never really know what's going to happen. But most of the litigation that the town's been in has been resolved. And so at this point, I think that things are likely to be relatively stable for the foreseeable future. But if this is acceptable, we have prepared a proposed revision to the retainer agreement itself, which we would ask that you approve. One of the components of that would be that we will not seek another increase for at least the next 2 years as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that members of the board might have.
Questions for John? Hearing none, then a motion would be in order.
Make a motion that we approve as presented.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Timing is everything.
Yes.
I would like to see this earlier in any budget year. I won't be here, but I would like to see it currently for the rest of the board members, a more timely budget matter.
Thank you. The attorney and I have had that discussion.
We did, and I certainly understand that view, and we'll follow through with that the next time around, at least 2 years from now.
At least 2 years from now. Thank you.
That's right.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the contract as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you all very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, John.
Out of that, what did you get?
That brings us to additional items from the town manager and Deputy Chief Height on the fireworks display. Deputy, good morning again.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm pleased and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you a little bit today about our fireworks show that we have coming up. Of course, everything's on track for a wonderful fireworks show. Last week, I went and spoke with Andy McCann and Lovey at the pier. Believe it or not, Andy's excited about the fireworks being there. They have made some additions to the pier this year to get the space back, and I think we're going to have a wonderful show. We're in regular communications, of course, with the technician from Zambelli Fireworks, who is planning a really great show for us, and I think we're going to be impressed. Of course, behind the scenes, the fire department, the police department, and public services are working together for this show. Everything is lining up beautifully, and I think everything logistics-wise is going to be in place. They arrive on July 2nd with their equipment, and then, of course, set up early the morning of July 4th for the show, which takes place at 9:25 on July 4th. So I hope that everyone can either be in attendance somehow or watch it. We hope that we don't have to go into effect with the rain date of July 5th, but if we can, the contingency plan is in place to make that happen. Just a couple of reminders to the public that that night there will be no fire permits issued. It's a little bit difficult to manage the beach fires on the beach, and also that all consumer fireworks are illegal in Nags Head, and we look out for those as well. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them if I can, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you.
Any questions? Deputy
I
Chief?
love fireworks.
I hope it's going to be a wonderful show.
Nags does a good job, and I appreciate that.
One quick, I never really thought of this, towns are using Shot Spotter. We could use that for the illegal fireworks around town that week, Maybe we could find some of those people. The next item is a report on the 2023 beach driving season. Chief Hale.
Amy's going to start.
Oh, Amy? Amy gonna do this? Okay. Beg your pardon, Amy.
It's okay. I asked Perry who was going to go first, and he said me, so.
Okay.
I'm also going to try to use Huddle Hub here, so bear with me. Yay. Good morning, everybody. This was included in your packet, and Perry also told me I cannot highlight how we did not meet our budget with revenues this year, and I'm here just to present the facts. So what you can see is that the blue bar is Nags Head, and the orange bar is out of town. So it's pretty consistent since 2015 that we've been around 200 permits for the town of Nags Head. And then you can see in 2021 it really shot up with COVID, and when we implemented the new fee structure, which was $100 for non-residents and $50 for residents, you can see how that declined from about 1,800 permits last year to about under 400 permits this year. So again, just presenting you with some statistics. And then as far as the budget, we did not meet our budget this year, unfortunately. We budgeted over $60,000. We brought in slightly over $30,000. Just, wasn't sure how that was all going to shake out, but that's why we wanted to kind of present this to you today to let you know. So we did reduce the budget accordingly for next fiscal year. And that's about it, unless we have any other questions.
All right. Questions or comments? Commissioner Sears?
I'll save mine for the chief.
Okay. Commissioner Cahoon?
I think it showed the seriousness of people, whether they wanted to ride on the beach or not, or whether they just wanted to come and pay a really cheap fee and tear up the beach on weekends. And I think that wanting it to be serious instead of tearing it up came to effect. We pay a lot of money for beach nourishment. It doesn't need to be torn up by people wanting to joyride on weekends.
Do we know what happened in Killable Hills with permits?
I can ask. I'll ask today, and I can send that along. I don't know right now, but I'll definitely get that and send it along to Carolyn.
Okay, I would be curious about what happened with their sales, and then I'm going to ask the chief a question separately about what happened up there with beach driving, if anything. Commissioner Brinkley, questions for Amy before she leaves?
I stepped to the restroom, so
okay.
I apologize. Nothing from what I read in the packet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send the clerk an email for information, and I'll pass it along.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. All right, Chief.
Good morning again. Jokingly, I did say that to Amy about the revenues and sales, but this past beach driving season, we conducted 240 beach patrols. We issued 5 citations for driving without a permit, and we had 7 warnings for no permit. The warnings were those issued to people who had National Park Service tickets who truly did not know that it did not roll over into Nags Head. I can tell you that the officers that used their discretion on that thoroughly believe the occupants, the drivers of those vehicles that were out there. So we did have some discretion on that part. Instead of just going out there and blatantly just writing everybody tickets, we did listen to them and let them explain what they had thought. And most of them that were in the area south of Whalebone down there. So they, ramp 1 and everything else, they kind of thought that they were still okay to drive. Driving season was closed on the northern portion of our beach from Nags Head Pier to 8th Street the entire season. This area had little room for vehicles to maneuver, and the condition of the sand was extremely soft all year. We felt this would become a safety hazard with vehicles out there with little room to drive and maneuver. And then on nice days, especially where beachgoers were out there walking, it would make it very tight. So we felt that would be an extreme safety hazard, so we kept that closed this year. We did monitor that. and looked at it numerous times to see if there would be a chance that we could open it up. But the condition of the sand up there was extremely soft, and I know when I went out there several times to check, I even carried the manager with me, it was tight. I've grown up my entire life driving on the beach, four-wheel drive, and I got nervous a couple times out there with the condition of the sand on the north end of the beach, because you don't want to be the one that's out there that everybody's laughing at when you're stuck. The remaining area, we closed that 7 times due to hard winds and high tides for a total of 19 days. So we monitored everything with the conditions of high tides, didn't want people to take the chance, because if we don't close it, I feel that somebody's going to think that they can go out there and they're going to get caught. We have had calls in the past where people are calling us frantically saying the ocean is getting ready to take their vehicle and expect us to just come out there and mysteriously get it away from the rising tides. So we kept that closed during those inclement weather days. Overall, the condition of the beach was greatly improved this year to the lack of numerous vehicles and drivers who don't understand that driving on the beach is challenging within itself. It seemed we had a more responsible group this year. We had no calls for careless and reckless vehicles compared to previous years. And just about every encounter that we had, the drivers had their air pressure let down, and they were well off the toe of that dune. So overall, the condition of the beach, in my opinion, and our Officer Pierce's opinion, who's out there every day, sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a day, was greatly impressed with the condition of the beach. We didn't have the ruts, we didn't have people out there doing donuts, we didn't have people racing as we had in previous years. So overall, we were extremely pleased from the police department enforcement side of the beach condition this year with the change in the permits. So any questions that y'all might have, be happy to try and answer.
That was going to be, I appreciate that, because that was going to be my question, was what was the trade-off that we had gotten, you know? And so it sounds like people who really have to pay
Yes,
are the
sir. serious folks. I mean, the town spends a lot of money on beach nourishment. We realize that that's our go-to here.
Right.
And to see the condition of it at any time that I even went out there was just impressive this year compared to years in the past, where you're trying to maneuver and fight ruts that are left out there from people not airing down and don't understand that difference that makes.
Right. Do you know, even anecdotally, whether it was the same or worse in Killable Hills in terms of, I mean, I'm going to guess that we're going to see that some of the folks who didn't get Nags Head permits may have gotten Killable Hills permits.
And I haven't heard from the guys up there. Their person with the police department is not sworn that rides the beach, and then I think their fire department does a lot with their closing of the beach and making those decisions. Okay. But knowing from years past and talking to people from issues that we've had here in Nags Head, a lot of those drivers came here because the beach up there was just not feasible for driving anyway. Right. Their condition is a lot more unfavorable than ours is.
Yes.
Right. $10 for a 7-day permit versus what ours.
Right. Commissioner Sanders, any questions, comments?
No, thank you for the report.
Commissioner Sears.
No, he answered the questions I had for him.
Okay.
I do have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have anyone try to use Killable Hills permits in Nags Head this year?
Not that we saw, and we were very actively looking for those. So, just to make sure that everybody understood, we did place the new signs up there, right there at 8th Street. We redid the signs coming up that specifically stated at all the drive-over ramps that Nags Head permit only. So we tried to keep that on our Facebook as much, that Killable Hills permits were not allowed anyway in Nags Head. But overall, we were very excited.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. That brings us to item K3, an update on the Jockeys Ridge State Park Soundside access. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So last time I think we spoke about this was in December, and we had made the board aware that we received an email from the state regarding the status of the lease that we hold at Jockeys Ridge State Park Soundside access. Essentially, the email stated that the lease had expired. So we still have only we only have possession of that email. We have not received anything formal from the state, and I would sort of expect something more formal than an email for the termination of the lease. So I've asked the state for that. I'm still waiting on that. There's a lot of things in the lease that I think we would want to noted in this formal letter. One of the items is what happens to the improvements at the state park once the lease is terminated. The lease certainly states that they would convey to the state. When we had a working group working on this issue for a couple of years, one of the things that the group acknowledged is that in the future, we may not have a lease with the state, but we would probably want to have some sort of memorandum of understanding about how it operates. And so we did meet with the state to discuss what a future agreement might look like. And, you know, a lot of the things in the existing lease weren't happening the way that they were stated in the lease. That lease hadn't been updated in a long time. A lot of the day-to-day activities at the access were being handled by the state. You know, patrols and taking out or emptying trash cans, opening and closing the gate. A lot of those things were being handled by the state, but those were town responsibilities in the lease. One of the issues that came up during our working group discussions was the parking at the access. You know, the town had sort of made a statement in that working group that there was a desire to limit the number of vehicles using the access to what was in the parking lot that was originally constructed. You know, over time, the cars started parking down the drive aisle on both sides. At some point in time, there was a limit on cars parking on the east side of the drive aisle. The working group had requested that parking no longer be allowed on the west side of the drive aisle. And we received a response back from the state that they were not going to consider that. One of the things that struck me about that was that in the lease, you know, since the town operates the access theoretically, it stated that the town has liability for what happens. And, you know, if we're not maintaining controlled decision-making authority over what happens inside the access, I don't think we want that. And so I think it's time for the lease to go away. I think there is opportunity to create an agreement for mutual operation of the access, or at least get the state to consider the things that have been in place for a long time. I think a lot of the day-to-day responsibilities, the physical work that's done to maintain the access, some of that could be handled informally. But I did have a lengthy conversation with Megan Vaughn recently as yesterday, and I think some of the board members here have talked to her as well about some concerns they have about the lease completely going away without any sort of agreement. And I agreed with a lot of the things that she said. You know, if this becomes just a part of the park and it's operated in the future as just part of the park, you know, what could happen? You know, do the hours of operation go away? Does the gate go away? A lot of the things that we set in place originally, we would have no control over. And so I do think that we need to work with them to come up with some sort of agreement that addresses a lot of those operating conditions. And, you know, we normally would approve something like that through our zoning, but we don't have zoning authority over the state. And so we certainly want to be good neighbors with the state. I hope they would consider some operating conditions that we would like to see as part of an agreement. And so I think that's what I would recommend working on, is some agreement that addresses a lot of these concerns. And I'm happy to continue to talk to the neighbors about that and hear feedback from the board on what we should include in that agreement. But that's our update for now. You know, some of the other responsibilities we're working on, just some minor things that would happen. You know, the town has been paying the water bill at the access. You know, I've talked to Joy about transferring that to them. I noticed that the county has been paying the water bill for the visitor center and the other parts of the park. And I think that was an agreement that they worked out because there's deep well sites on state property. And there's some adjustments that need to be made to the signage and a few other things, but I think the transition over to the state would be fairly simple as long as we can work on this agreement that we've talked about. So that's my update for you today on the access.
One of the issues that came up that created a lot of concern was the Parks and Rec Department use of the access for programming and buses going down there. Is that still occurring?
Buses, well, I think the Parks and Rec Department has had some summer camps visit the access. And then buses, recently, we were made aware of some tour buses that went down to the access.
Tour buses?
Tour buses. And, you know, I don't think that that access was really designed for that, obviously. You know, there's no way for them to get into the access and turn around and back out. And then we have a sign at the entrance that says no stopping and unloading. And my understanding is that they stopped and unloaded right there at the entrance. And we didn't find out about it until after the fact. So I talked with Chief Hale about this, and we were thinking about bringing a traffic control map amendment to you in July that would address those types of vehicles using Soundside Road. But yeah, that's something we could talk to them further about. But I think the traffic control map amendment would help facilitate handling that situation.
One thing that might help facilitate that situation is, since the Visitors Bureau has a list of all the bus companies that come, perhaps a letter to them and getting a list of their tour companies and a letter to the tour companies about that is not an access for the tour companies to be using.
Thank you, Commissioner Green.
I had an opportunity to speak with Ms. Murray, Ms. Vaughn, and Mr. Vaughn about this. And where I agree with Commissioner Cahoon that a letter to the bus companies could help, this should never have happened to begin with. According to the letter that I was forwarded, the tour buses were over at the main site and expressed interest about going over to the Southside site. They should have been told right then and there, there's no room to do it, you can't do it. They were allowed to go anyway. Stopped right there where it says no parking, no unloading, and unloaded the kids. That to me is a slap in our face and our ordinances that we've tried to put in place to protect the neighborhood and their concerns. And that really struck a chord with me, and I don't want the residents to feel like that we're going to abandon them if everything is just passed along to the state. I understand maybe this agreement that we've had for several years may be outdated, but we need something, because Andy talked about no parking on the west side of the aisle, but yet we accept liability. So when the fire truck can't get in there, I mean, do we have liability there? We've said that we can't get in there. So they're going to stop out in the road and have to pull a hose for a vehicle fire? I mean, we've got, they don't have a fire department at the state park. We've got to do it. So when are they going to start soliciting us for options that may make the area safer? I don't see them doing that, and I don't see them making any concessions at all, in my opinion.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Yeah, I have to agree with Commissioner Brinkley. I mean, the safety issues bother me, that this lease is terminated and that we don't have an agreement in place. I mean, obviously, it's just progressively getting a little bit worse. I think that we definitely need to have some sort of agreement in place before we say that we're out of the lease. We have to get something in writing, some sort of agreement.
I have a question for the Deputy Fire Chief.
Yes, sir.
So I understand we may not have an agreement there that's particular to the access at some point. But we do provide, if the visitor center catches on fire, we respond. I mean, it's state property, but they're in the town of Nags Head, we respond to fire.
Right.
Do y'all inspect the visitor center?
No, sir.
You don't, because that's state, so presumably somebody from the state comes and inspects that.
They are supposed to, yes, sir.
Is there, to your knowledge, I'm trying to think about the access.
Mhm.
Yeah, so if there was a fire, if there was a car fire or any other kind of emergency that we were called to respond to,
Sure.
we're expected to do that. In the access, are there any provisions that you're aware of that we have any right to inspect the access like we would a building? And I'm guessing we don't, because we don't do the visitor center, and just say, this has to be kept clear for safety.
So from the fire code standpoint, to my knowledge, there is not.
Okay.
I do believe there's a possibility that we could reach out to OSFM,
Okay.
because they do have enforcement capabilities and authorities, and they do inspections, and see if there's any way that they could enforce an emergency lane or something of that nature. Because to Commissioner Brinkley's point, there could be some difficulty accessing that during busy times, of course. I don't know if we'd get anywhere with that, because I know with their inspection program, I think that's keeps them pretty busy, is all I'll say.
Right.
But we could, that is definitely an option that we could look at and investigate.
So let me ask you and the manager, to the best of your knowledge, have we ever sent a letter to the Office of the State Fire Marshal to express our concern about our ability to respond in that access because of?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay, then I think that would be, I would suggest that would be an order that we should do that.
Okay.
Certainly.
I think there's probably some pictures in the file, if I remember correctly, that has been forwarded that would support your concerns or the town's concerns if the letter comes from
Sure.
Indy. I mean, I've had some interactions with the Office of the State Fire Marshal, and I mean, that they are concerned as any fire marshal is about risk of fire.
Exactly.
And I suspect they don't care, they would not care what Jockey's Ridge thinks about the way they're supposed to be operating it. The fire marshal is going to say, this has to be clear so your local responders can get through here.
Right.
Okay.
I think it would be worthwhile.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
What I
Yes,
wanted.
sir.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion on this, Andy?
No, not for me.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Can we take a short break? Sure. Let's take about a 10-minute recess. Okay, all right. The board has returned to open session, and that brings us to item K4, a request from the village to remove the town's open space easement for a mailbox facility. All right, Andy.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. So, last month, I met with Howard Swain, who I believe is the current chairman of the Village of Nags Head POA. And he had been talking to, I believe, David Ryan and Kelly Wyatt about a project they'd like to conduct to build a new mailbox facility. And this is very similar to what you see in condominium associations, where they have a freestanding facility with boxes and a little shelter above it. And they've identified a site for this, which I'll show you real quick. So right here, there's Sea Chase Drive. This is where we have a traffic signal. If you're heading south and make a left, then this area would be right here on the right-hand side of the road. And this parcel right here is a larger parcel owned by Club Corps, which owns the golf course. And what they're looking to do is carve out a small piece of property from that in order to put the mailbox in this area. It's roughly 2,200 square feet. And so the issue here is that when the village was developed, they were required by our code to dedicate open space to the town of Nags Head through an easement, and that was done. And so this property that I've highlighted is all part of that open space easement. And the ordinance requires that at least 20% of the land area in the village remain in open space. And so we just need to make sure that that remains the case if this were released from the easement. We did some calculations, and the amount of open space that's part of the easement is well above the amount required by the ordinance. So taking this small piece of property out of the easement, would definitely not run afoul of our code. And we believe the code would actually allow them to make this improvement without releasing it from the easement. They want to acquire the property, and they want free title to the property. They don't want this easement shown on the property, so that's why they're requesting this. We think that it's an appropriate request. We don't see any issues with our code, and we would recommend approving it. And so their attorney, Robert Hobbs, has prepared a release for the board to approve. And I've got that on the screen. One thing I should note is that if you agree to do this, I would suggest you authorize the mayor to sign the release as soon as they provide proof that the property has changed hands. So you would not agree to approve this until they've actually taken possession of the property.
Okay.
Questions?
Questions for Andy? Commissioner Kane?
Is there going to be a restriction that this shall be only for the mailbox use and not any further buildings?
Well, I don't know if that language has been incorporated into anything officially. Let's see.
I mean, I didn't see that, but if we're going to release it for mailbox, that there be no other.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe John, you can help with this. Would it be appropriate to put something like that in the release, or is that something that we would want to condition some other way? Or would we have the ability to do that?
What would the condition be again?
Commissioner Cahoon stated that we would want to make sure that if we release this property from the easement, that it's only used for the mailbox project and nothing else.
I don't know why you couldn't condition it that way. That's really a Robert Hobbs question, but I don't know why you couldn't do that, make it a conditional release.
So they could make that part of their motion to amend the release to state that?
I would think so.
And so then we could just get Robert to amend it,
Mhm.
and then the mayor would sign it whenever the property's changed hands.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You have any idea what it's gonna look like or how they're gonna access it? I see where they're putting a concrete pad, but they don't.
Yeah, that's the configuration. The yellow would be the concrete apron that accesses the property.
Hundredths of an acre.
And,
I can tell you, they have a request for proposals out to designers, and what they've described there is wanting a sloped roof, sort of timbered, exposed timber post structure with some kind of windscreen on the north side. And then they'll have they'll mount those prefabricated mailbox type structures with multiple boxes inside this little structure is what they're proposing.
Probably similar to the other, except it's covered. The other one doesn't have any cover on it. It's just a little cutout
Yeah.
to the further to the west.
That's
I
right.
think, because they've been wanting more mailboxes. I do know that.
Yeah.
I believe this is a better location for sight distance as well, for vehicles pulling in and out. Like maybe David, I think he's familiar with this well.
Would they do away with the other one if they do that?
Yes.
Yes, I think that was the
Well,
interest, just consolidate it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So what we would entertain then, I guess, is a motion to approve the request,
To authorize you to sign the release.
to authorize the mayor to sign the release with the condition that the land property in question not be used for any other purpose than a mailbox.
Right.
And then at such time
Mailbox
that the
structure.
property actually becomes their property.
Once the property is conveyed.
Once the property
Yes.
changes hands.
Yes.
Second.
Okay. Did you get that, Carolyn?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right. So I guess I made the motion, so I've got a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right. Then that brings us to David and project reviews.
All right. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners.
Morning.
Go ahead and try to connect up. All right. So I think this is the first time that we have done this, where we have done a summary of the projects that we have done over the past 12 months. What I'm going to present is a slideshow to you of the various projects and initiatives that the town has undertaken over the past 12 months.
And I think this is something that could be put on the town's website as well, right?
It is.
This is something that we could put out to folks about the work we've done.
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
And this includes a lot of various projects from different departments.
All right. There was a lot that we covered there, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to go ahead and answer those for you.
Oh, that's nice. No, I like seeing that. I think that would be a good, and it's a great thing for the public. The public may need a little more information. I don't know if you would want to add any narration or anything to it. I mean, it can certainly go as it is, but, and I think it is beneficial for the public to see what happened, but.
A lot of projects, a lot of good projects.
Yeah.
What do we do with our dewatering?
Yeah, We asked that question. When we dewater something, we were talking about pools, when we dewater something, where do we send the water?
We typically have an existing drainage system available to us since we're working in the right-of-way. So most of that time, we're able to go ahead and send it to one of our storm drainage pipes or one of our ditches. And the example that was given there was East Barn Street. We had the South Memorial Avenue ditch that we were able to go ahead and use for dewatering.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Great. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Public services.
All right. All right, the one project that we did not cover in the year-end review is public services. We're looking at this as a standalone, and what I have up on the screen is an overview of the site, and I've got it color-coded. The color coding, the orangish color, that represents our existing brush yard operation. The blue or the cyan color, that represents construction in progress. The gray represents some recent demolition of existing buildings or parking. And the green represents clearing and grading for some of our future facilities. So in looking at this overview, we've got Lark Avenue that runs north and south right here. To the right of that is our new administration site and our former brush yard operation. To the left, we have our main public works facility. And back here, also running north and south, is Pond Avenue. And then on the very left-hand side of the page over here, that would be the Fresh Pond. And so as you can see, with this project, there is much construction happening in multiple areas there on the site. And this just gives you an overview. And what I'd like to focus on is where a bulk of our construction is occurring right now. What I have is an aerial overview of the new administration site. This is color-coded as well to define the areas in green. Those are areas that have been finished with grading and placement of gravel stone. Here, this olive green, that represents construction that is currently in progress. That the stone base is down, but there is no concrete that has been poured for that driveway as of yet. And that extends to the new northern entrance, which was cut in about a month ago. This serves as our primary access now for our bulk yard operation. To the south, we have a new entrance that has been cut in here. That leads to the new parking area that has been graded out. And here to the right, this is the location of our new administration building. And recently we had the footers poured for this building, and we should see vertical construction here within the next several weeks. What I've highlighted here in orange was the building that used to serve as the main office for our brush yard operation. That has been relocated over onto the north side. And we recently got some temporary fuel tanks delivered to the site, and that's shown right here over in the northeast corner of the site. And so from a construction standpoint, we're moving along, but also from an operational standpoint, here with public services, we've had to go ahead and maneuver things and jockey things around in order to go ahead and maintain full operation. So we've been able to do that. A couple other things that I wanted to go ahead and highlight is one of the communication tools that we've been using internally is via SharePoint. And basically, this is our portal that we have for the project. We have our site plans, our schedules, construction information, plus we have been able to go ahead and provide project news and updates. Here's one that was provided recently that talks about, you know, some of the ongoing work that is happening here on site. So we have this tool that we've been using internally to go ahead and track the progress of the project, as well as be able to go ahead and communicate with staff, especially if there are things that we need to go ahead and coordinate in advance of construction activities occurring. We also have photos as well that we've been taking all along, just documenting the whole construction process. So just wanted to go ahead and keep it short and concise, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. As of this time, we are about 4% complete with the overall project based upon the work that was started back in early April.
All right. Board, any questions?
I had occasion to visit the brush yard on Monday, and they're made good use of what they're able, they don't have the entire site, but it is functioning. People can still access it, and I appreciate David and the contractor working together to allow that to still continue.
Good. Anyone else?
Pretty much on schedule still, or?
I would say right now, we're probably a week or two off schedule. I think when they originally started the grading of the administration site, they came across some unsuitable soils. And with that, it took them a little bit of time to go ahead and remove those, get the proper testing done to make sure that they had adequate compaction before they went ahead and laid the gravel down. So other than that, they are pressing forward, like I said, in multiple areas on the site to go ahead and try to maintain that project schedule.
What was the depth of the unsuitable soils?
It varied, but I think at the greatest depth, it was about 3.5 feet deep. And
There's no caskets or anything, though. But
Oh, thank you.
it was
No Indian artifacts.
years' worth of mulching
Native
operations
American
that had
artifacts.
sort of, built up.
Some of the items that they found some golf balls, which apparently came from the dredging of this ditch out here along 158. And we took those spoils material and put them back in the brush yard. And so items like that are some of those little treasures that they've found, and the contractor has been collecting them as keepsakes.
Oh, that's funny. Very good. All right, thank you, David.
All right.
This is such a high-profile project, and obviously, the board's getting ready to consider a budget that's primarily based on the work that's being done here. So
Yeah.
we wanted to do a monthly update to the board about this as long as the project is underway.
Yeah.
So
I
just
think it's
lets the
great.
board and the public know what's happening.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That brings us to discussion of a traffic signal at Villadines Drive. Andy?
Recently, I met with Ralph Buxton, a resident off of Villadines Drive, who wanted to talk about a number of transportation and traffic-related issues. One of the things that came up during the meeting was whether or not DOT would ever consider a traffic signal at this intersection of Villadines Drive and US 158. I suggested that he submit a letter to the town requesting that. And David reached out to the traffic engineer with DOT, Jason Davidson. He confirmed that they would like these requests to come through the board to make sure there's no objection from the board before they conduct a study. I believe they will conduct a study if we request it. We've discussed this internally. We see no reason, or we have no objection to the study being conducted. We're not sure that it's going to meet the criteria for a signal. Their criteria for a signal is very objective, so it either meets it or it doesn't, and therefore it's going to get it or it's not. And there's whether or not the town wants it hasn't always mattered in their analysis of this, and it's probably the way it should be. But we have no objection to this. If the board wants to go ahead and ask us to submit a request to DOT, we're happy to do that.
Board, any thoughts about that?
I don't know if it's gonna meet the requirements, but I have no problem requesting a study.
I would like to see that the staff come up with other areas that could or could not be problem areas now or in the immediate future with the changes to our occupancy. If we're going to ask for one, let's ask for multiple.
Wherever they need to be. Commissioner?
No, I'm in favor of moving forward.
Okay. All right.
That, that's one of the things that we can ask them about is, is there a merit in looking at the whole corridor? And I don't know if they would be willing to do that. They're supposed to do a corridor study at some point in the future. And so that seems to be pretty far out in their timing and schedule right now. So we can talk about that with them.
I wouldn't mind being in a meeting with them. I have some frustrations about DOT I'd like to express.
We have been talking to them about the signals as a result of the construction, and David talked with them. I think they've had some issues with the electrical contractor who's installing the actuators in the pavement, and so that has resulted in some delay of getting the signals in the proper timing. So,
thank you.
They were better during construction than they are now.
And it's obviously two different contractors. Fred Smith did the paving, and now I believe is Watson Electrical is coming back to do the signal work.
All right, thank you.
I had one more thing, if you don't mind. We're doing, I guess, fairly well on time. So we have been working on an update to the town's website, and we're getting ready to launch that. There's some new features to the website. So Roberta's just going to take a few minutes and show you that.
Oh, good.
Good to see you all from up here in my little cold corner. Just kidding.
Well,
I heard a winter jacket.
I have a little heater. You can have a little heater just in that corner there.
I don't know if you know this, but in the last 12 months, we have had nearly 350,000 unique visits to our website. That's an average of 29,000 visits a month. So you can see what kind of tool it is to get information out to people. It's an online town hall. It acts as an online town hall. It is promotes transparency, which I know is very important to this town. And it attracts businesses and visitors and residents to Nags Head. So it's been overdue for a redesign, and I'm getting ready to launch. We're going to launch it June 13th. We've been working on it for the past year. I think you'll like it. It is a design that's more modern. It makes it easier for people to find the information they need, because we went over the analytics in great depth to determine which sites get the most visits, among other analytics that we looked at. So I'll try the Hello Hub. Present it to you. Just wanted to point out some differences. I'm just for time's sake, I'm going to just show you changes to the front page. The interior pages pretty much, they resemble this, but we didn't make as many changes to where the content is. To start off with, the new trends now are for a smaller image on the front site to allow for more information and text information and links, so people don't have to keep scrolling down out of the image to find what they need. You'll notice this image, I'm not going to, again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to bother to click, but these images are links. So if I were to click on this, it would take you to another page for more information on our beach, and then our Dowdy Park events, stuff like that. As you travel farther down the page, you'll see that we have these images. I worked with Karen Snyder and Brittany Phillips, who were tremendously helpful in this entire project. And they had suggested that we use icons that are more general in nature, and that way we can change them out seasonally. So come October 1st, we can have a beach driving icon. We can have a bulk trash collection icon. So people don't have to they come to the front page, which is the most visited page, and they can click right there and get the information they need much quicker. These are, I don't have enough to scroll right now ready, but these are scrolling, so we can add a bunch more. And if you'll see that the top visited pages we've had over the past 12 months were the front page, which you're looking at now, and this isn't necessarily in order: trash and recycling, Dowdy Park events, and gosh, I'm forgetting one thing. I'm sure it's up here, and beach information. I'm sorry? The budget? Excuse me. The budget's very popular, and our finance officer will be happy to see that I've highlighted it down here. The latest news hasn't really changed. These are all Instagram size now. They'll be forced to do that because that's where we're kind of going for a lot of this information for sizing. It's not a big deal. Down here, another big change we've made is to the calendar. We're separating out meetings and events. And to the left, you can see we can highlight a meeting, we can highlight an event, and that can be clickable. There you go, Amy. So, and we can put more information there. So the entire, and then at the bottom, we have a video highlight of our videos. We can highlight today's board meeting when we launch June 13th. So this was all an effort to make it a lot easier to navigate, and so that when people come to our site, they can get the information that they need much quicker. And again, I just wanted to thank Brittany and Karen Snyder, the department heads. We spoke to them, got their input, and the webmasters. That's all I have. Do you have any questions?
What will be the list of things that if I want to, what kind of things will go into that category? Is that clickable at this point?
It is clickable. We already have that up here. We have not changed the what we call, these are the mega menus.
Okay.
So if I were to click on this right now, it'd go, because it's not alive yet, it would go to what our old page looks like.
Okay.
So if you have any suggestions, but the I want to is not changing.
Okay. Thank you.
We did make this clearer up here and removed engage in favor of having more information here. We didn't have a lot under engage.
Any questions, board? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and that brings us to the Board of Commissioners agenda. I'll start down here with Commissioner Sears. Anything on your agenda?
No, I think what I had on my agenda, we're going to approach at the mid-month.
Okay, very good, thank you. Commissioner Cahoon?
No, nothing, thank you.
Mr. Brinkley?
Briefly, if I could, I know
Yes.
the board has received a number of emails about the soccer complex.
Yes.
I appreciate Andy responded to some of those. I've had phone conversations with some of them. Andy actually met out there on site with them. I think there's a lot of misinformation going out, and I think Andy has tried to correct that.
Yes.
That the county is responsible for everything within those fences, the maintenance, watering, lighting, all that. And the area that they have been using for kindergartners is actually a stormwater basin. That's what it is. But it's still a work in progress, I think, according to what Andy said, but just did want to mention that.
Yeah. Well, since you brought it, this was one of the things I had added under my agenda was to sort of dispel these rumors. And so I appreciate that you did that. And for the benefit of the public, I also appreciate staff helping out with those responses because it was getting to be a lot. And encountered this yesterday. I made a presentation to the North Banks Rotary Club and talked about town initiatives in our budget, and soccer came up partly because I mentioned the public services complex, and they were concerned that any road closures or activities might affect parking, the overflow parking back there, and I assured them I didn't think that was going to happen. But you touched on it. All of the programming, all of the turf, all of the irrigation, all of the lighting, everything that happens inside the fence is Dare County's, period. So any questions about that need to go to Dare County. It's Nags Head property. It was never intended to be exclusively a soccer complex. And I think people have that in their minds, that that is exclusively a soccer complex for some reason. It's not. It's town property under which the county operates a soccer program, maintains soccer fields and operates a soccer program through an agreement with us. And, you know, Nags Head has broader objectives. We have a larger public to serve with the property that we have, and all of our properties are at a premium, and we try to do as much as we can with them. You know, and I do think there's some misunderstanding about, you know, the informal soccer fields that they had created in the stormwater basin, which is a stormwater basin, that those would be impacted, and then that leapt to become an understanding that we were removing soccer fields, implying that inside the fence somehow soccer fields were being taken out, and it just went on and took a life of its own. So anything inside the fence is Dare County's. Neither they nor anyone else, to my knowledge, has ever expressed any interest in modifying those fields or anything inside the fence. The parking problem is a product of it all being over-programmed and overused, more so than what was presented to the town initially. It's not going to become, you know, the parking's not ever going to be expanded to the full capacity of what they're programming on soccer fields. So that's not in the works. And we're going to do our best to accommodate. We're not removing any parking. That's not, as far as I know. All of this is subject to a site plan that may or may not come before us to change anything, and we haven't seen a site plan yet. And that has to go through a process. And, you know, we're going to do the best we can to accommodate as much use there as possible. And that's it.
And I appreciate the volunteers, because they have a very large number of participants, and a small group of volunteers.
Yeah.
And I told them they were very resourceful to look at using that field, of the stormwater basin.
Sure.
And I recognize that, and that they're just trying to advocate for their group. We just need to make sure the right information is out there.
Yes, absolutely. And I also appreciate, and I think I said this, I appreciate the manager doing his best that he can to communicate and meet with folks. Yes.
I just wanted to say something when there's a chance.
Okay. You can say it now. That's good.
Go ahead. Okay. I mean, I've had several conversations with different people, and I think the board is aware that there's a long-standing frustration with the soccer community about the fields. And last year, I believe in May of 2022, this group presented a proposal to the county to turf the fields that are there now with artificial turf, because the fields stay closed for a large portion of the year, 4 to 5 months, and that is for the existing grass to regenerate. They've had some issues with maintenance over the years. They've gone to a contractor to maintain the fields, but still, there's a large portion of the year that those fields are not available at all, and they stay locked. And so there's a lot of interest in soccer in the county. The county is certainly aware of that. You've got several different groups. You've got Dare County Parks and Rec. You've got OBISA, Outer Banks Youth Soccer Association, and you've got Storm that are all trying to program soccer events. There's limited facilities in the county, and so it's painful when you've got one really nice facility, but it stays closed for so long. And so my understanding is that the county did not move forward with that proposal to try and turf those fields, and they're looking at providing lighting at another field. And there's some dissatisfaction with that, because what I'm being told is that that's not really something that's going to help them. Now, the idea of the stormwater basin being used, that's something that's just happened over time. They started lining those areas and putting little kids in the basin. There's been some complaints about the condition of that, but that's not something that was ever improved. And You know, when the site plan was presented to the town years ago, you know, I think it showed two fields, two regulation fields, which would be very large. That was really never the intent. When it opened, I think there were 4 fields, and they were just reoriented east-west instead of north-south. And then when we did a parking analysis based on that, and that's what resulted in the parking that's there. So then when you take 2 fields, which became 4 fields, and now you've got fields outside the fence, you've got like 6 fields or more. And so that's the reason why there's not enough parking, is, as the mayor said, it's not big enough for what it's being used for, but it's a larger problem. The problem is larger. There's a demand for soccer in the county that's not being met. And I think that's the frustration by this group, and I think that's why they're coming to you, the board of Nags Head, because they're frustrated. They don't have any other group listening to them. And so I think we want to stay in touch with them. We want to be in tune with them and be responsive to their concerns. There's a lot to consider, not just with this current idea of doing some additional things there, but in the future, what this property becomes, because we have a lease agreement with the county which expires in another 4 to 5 years. And so, you know, do we want to try to get some of these things addressed? And so it's bringing up a lot of issues that we need to keep thinking about. And I've tried to convey to the group, the soccer group, that, you know, we're interested in their concerns and we're not going to ignore them. But it's still evolving, and we'll be learning more over the next few weeks. And I think the county is actually considering some other things as well, which haven't become public knowledge yet.
A lot of these frustrations go back, I mean, I coached storm soccer for 10 years, and that was 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago. And I mean, this was ongoing discussion back then, especially about the fields being locked up as to why couldn't they rotate different areas of the field or find some other solution other than locking fields up and just closing them down for 5 or 6 months out of the year. And I mean, it really is 5 or 6 months out of the year that they lock those fields down.
That's ridiculous.
And you can't use them. And they have probably the best grass of any fields because they lock them down so much. But I mean, you got kids that want to go back there and play. And when they can't play and they can't practice, I mean, then what are they doing then? We don't know, you know, probably maybe up to no good or something. So it's better to keep them busy playing soccer and sports and stuff. So I mean, a lot of their frustration dates way back.
Commissioner Coon, you had one more soccer.
I have a couple observations. One is, there's soccer fields. They should not be closed down for the car show to be parked back there on days that people could have played soccer. That's my observation. The county runs it. I don't know what they did with it, but that's not exactly what the fields were put there for anyway. That's not necessarily a recreation aspect of the property.
Not what's in our MOU.
No. And the other observation is from somebody that should have known better, questioning the Partif grant. Dare County got the Partif grant. They used the Partif grant to develop the fields and the parking. That's what they used the Partif grant for, according to the terms of Partif. Nowhere does it say Nags Head was part of the Partif grant and we can't do other things with the property that we own outside of those facilities. So anybody that should have known better, writing about Partif and questioning whether Partif would be impacted by anything that we do is kind of a ridiculous assumption. Can I make one more observation? If we're worried about, I'd like to have staff look at one other thing. We have some grassy fields up behind Health Center Drive. Maybe perhaps those could be, for staff to look at and bring back to the board for consideration. Practice little fields for the smaller kids to play on back in that grassy field. That's a pretty big area back there. I'm just throwing it out off the cuff. I've not talked to staff. I've not talked to other members of the board, but it occurred to me that might be some area that we could offer up at some point in time.
Okay, thank you. Two more observations for me on this topic. In terms of marking off fields, a full-size, very nice soccer field fits on the event site, and it would have lights around it. So, you know, so for the 330 days a year that they don't have anything going on there, you can play soccer out there.
Also, the Kelly site The former Penguin Isle site might be some
Might work
space for
too.
soccer fields.
So this may come back to bite me, to bite us, because they could point their comments our way too. As long as folks have competing interest, you know, it's easy not to do anything because you can say you're trying to weigh pickleballs and this, that, the other. I wonder if all the outdoor recreation groups in the county have considered getting themselves together in an association. This is not for Nags Head, this is for them. Get themselves together in an association, develop a common set of goals so that they can't be played against one another, and then go to the county with all that leverage of everybody united in their interest.
I mean, I've sort of wondered the same thing. I'm not as informed about this as I should be, and you know, I plan to be, but, you know, in terms of overall recreation planning, I mean, the town of Nags Head did a recreation plan, I believe in 2012, and I would sort of expect that the county has done something similar to that, but I'm not sure. And so that seems like the opportunity for something like this to be addressed is how do you analyze the demand for different activities in the county and plan for them? And has that been done, you know, or is it more of a sort of a reactive thing?
Right.
And so, and those are certain questions we could certainly ask before we agree to allow our facilities to be used.
I think that would be a very good idea. Thank you. Commissioner Sanders, do you have anything on your agenda?
Nothing further, no, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I covered everybody. So that brings us to the mayor's agenda, and I had added, you know, addressing the soccer rumor, so I'll strike that off. We do have a resolution in our package in support of Roanoke Island Historical Association's production of The Lost Colony. I had spoken informally with everybody except Commissioner Sears, who was not here at that meeting, and a letter was sent to our legislators, essentially saying the same thing this resolution does, but telling them that we would be considering a resolution in support of the Lost Colony at a later date when we could get it on the agenda. So that's what you have before you, and all it really does is to say that it be resolved that the town of Nags Head Commissioners do hereby express their sincere thanks and appreciation to the Board of Directors of the Roanoke Island Historical Association for its hard work, and we pledge our continuing support for the Lost Colony. They have had funding cuts from the past in the legislature, and I think they just are working to try to maintain the support that they have and get additional support for their programming. So having read that, a motion would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right, thank you. That brings us to our closed sessions. And do we have any changes to these closed sessions? Or are we going to go with what's published here?
I believe I do want to at least do the second one, the closed session to consult with the town attorney regarding the 205 Baltic property.
Then I move that the board go into closed session to consider a personnel matter pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A6 and to consult with the attorney regarding matters protected by attorney-client privilege to preserve that privilege regarding 205 Baltic LLC pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A3. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right, the board will be in closed session. All right, the board has returned to open session. Mr. Leidy, will you report, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the board did discuss matters within the attorney-client privilege and gave instructions to the town attorney. Also discussed a personnel matter, but no other actions were taken.
Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, then we would, a motion would be in order to recess to 9 a.m. on June the 21st.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. Board is in recess.